always such a good feeling in early spring pulling the covers off the cars. I haven't seen this car other than under the cover in 3-4 months now, and just, you know, I've owned it forever. Well, not forever, I've owned it for like 3 years, but you just forget how good they look. You pull the cover off and it's like the day you bought it all over again. So psyched to see the 69 back in the garage without the cover on it. It looks incredible. And you guessed it, and as the thumbnail probably shows, I have no idea what it even is yet, but we are getting right into more mods for this thing. I'm so excited to announce I'm partnering up with QA1, the automotive giant that develops some of the best suspension components known to man. Reached out and said, hey, we love your Gen 1 and we're developing some really cool stuff for that platform. We'd love for you to try it out. And, you know, and of course I was like, I'd be honored, would love to. So I have had a whole bunch of boxes that I've been trying so hard to keep hidden for the, weeks at this point. And I feel bad because it's taken this long, but I've been busy with work and travel and other projects. But I'd like to get them out here, get them unboxed so I can show you guys and also take some pictures for QA1 marketing. And hopefully some of you other guys with first gen Camaros and Firebirds can get in on this action. So let's get everything in front of the car, get it unboxed, and we'll talk about what the plan is. I don't even know, they sent me a whole bunch of boxes. I don't even know what all is in there, but let's get it all out, figure it out together. Well, gonna be a big trip to the dump later. That was a lot, but it's good to get everything out of the boxes and get our eyes on it. So this is everything that the team at QA1 was generous enough to send me for the first gen Camaro. This all started with this right here. I think that this is what I'm most excited about and what QA1 is most excited about as well. This is their brand new first gen F body, so Camaro Firebird 4-link rear suspension system. So we've got the rear cradle here. You can see it's powder coated like a satin black. The ends are bare metal because it will be welded to the chassis. Got your rear lower control arms adjustable, 2 rear shocks, coilovers. The coil springs are over there somewhere. Some associated hardware. This is your upper 4-link, double adjustable. So that is the main 4-link kit. Beautiful instructions, whole bunch of hardware and brackets and all that good stuff. So that's how this all started. QA1 just finished the development and release of this 4-link rear suspension system for the first gen F bodies. They're trying to get the word out there, and I think this is a great way to do it and a great partnership. But yeah, all these components just absolutely beautiful. Beautiful welds, beautiful powder coat, billet aluminum stuff. I mean, absolute top quality, made right here in the USA. From there, they said, well, let's do the front suspension as well. So we got lower A-arms, upper A-arms, coilovers for the front. Looks like a massive front sway bar, associated coils, and everything else that we'll need to basically do a full suspension install and just deck my beautiful 1969 Camaro out with all QA1 stuff. Basically through the QA1 catalog at this thing. And I cannot wait to get these things on there. Now I know some of you guys who know this car and have been following its build know that I bought it before I did the LS swap, before I did any of this stuff. This car came with mostly RideTech stuff. So it's got RideTech A-arms, RideTech coilovers, and a RideTech 4-link in the rear. So some of you are probably asking, you know, why redo a lot of that stuff? And the answer is, and I'm going to be totally 100% honest with you guys because I'm trying to be as relatable and human as possible. When a company like QA1, one of the best in the industry, not only for, you know, muscle cars, but for the 9904 Mustangs, new and old, just performance and muscle cars in general, and they reach out and they say, hey, do you want to try some of our suspension stuff on your car? What are you, nuts? You're going to say no? Of course not. Yeah, I'd love to work with you guys. I've been buying your parts for years since I was, you know, in my early 20s. I bought, or I think it might have even been 19 when my red Cobra, I bought the original QA1 K member for my Cobra. So for a company that you've been kind of idolizing for years to reach out and say, hey, we'd love for you to try our stuff, you got to do it. That's it. Simple as that. QA1 seems like a great team to work with, and I'm so excited to have the opportunity to get this stuff and get it on my car. Huge shout out to Q1. Of course, all their information is going to be in the description. If you guys have any questions at all, let me know. For now, I'm going to get this stuff organized, wrap my head around it, make sure that I have everything that I think I need, and decide what to tackle first. But I'll check in with you guys in a little bit. Oh, what do you know? It's been a week, almost. I have been a million miles an hour. I was on the road for work all week. Just quickly filmed the intro to this video last Sunday before I had to leave again after getting home with the Ford Lightning, which is right outside. So it's been a whirlwind, but it's finally a Friday night. I'm home, looking forward to the weekend, looking forward to making some progress on my 69 Camaro. So I think I've decided I'm going to start with the front suspension. You know, start at the front. Why not? So I got all the front parts laid out here: lower control arms, upper control arms, springs, shocks or coilovers. I got the sway bar there, associated hardware. I've got all my instructions laid out. I think I'm ready to go. So I'm going to start by taking some measurements. I'm going to measure the ride height, front and rear. I might get the, you know, camber angle. I mean, I'm going to get the car all aligned when this is all done anyways, but the car drives good right now. So I'd like to get it, you know, pretty close as is. So I'm going to take a bunch of measurements, as much as I can, and then we're going to get started. I've got a project coming up for the 2003 Cobra that's going to occupy it on the lift for a little while. So this is a perfect time to use my quick jacks. I told you guys this was going to happen. Having multiple ways of lifting vehicles. So once I get this thing up in the air, pop the front wheels off. I think the top A arms are just kind of bolted in right about there. And then we'll just kind of, you know, take a look at the rest as we go. So with all that being said, let's grab some wrenches, grab some tools. Got my eye on a cold beer in the beer fridge over there, and let's get to work. Making some progress here. It is the next day, guys. Got the driver's side pretty much knocked out as far as the front suspension. Upper A-arm, lower A-arm, coilover. I've got the RideTech sway bar just kind of hanging out here because I don't think it will come out. I should have taken it out while I had this side out, but I still have the entire passenger side to do, so I think I'll slide that thing out and probably slide the QA1 in there while I'm doing this side. This took a little longer than expected. As with any project, there's a little bit of a learning curve there. I wanted to make sure I took my time and assembled the QA1 stuff correctly, followed all their instructions, which are included and are excellent, and got it all knocked out. I'm a little bit dirty because I've just spent the last almost hour rolling around on the ground trying to get the lower A-arm bolt in through the stock Camaro subframe, which is a huge pain in the butt. Let me show you. So here's everything under here. You can see that hole up there. Maybe I can even show you guys the bolt. Right there is just buried under there because it's, you know, it's through bolted through here. And I lost the washer and then the bolt, got the washer out using my magnet, and then just fished and fished and fished with the magnet and couldn't find it. Had to get my, you know, scope out and then find it, hold that with one hand, grab the magnet, and then kind of find its way over to the bolt. Finally got that. Everything's just loose for now. I believe everything is supposed to get torqued with the weight of the car on the suspension. But we are hopefully more than halfway done on the front, because I'm hoping the other side goes a little bit faster. The shocks on the front here, you basically need to press out. Again, this is all in the instructions. You need to press out. This is for, I think, like A bodies or something. The F bodies use this this style shock mount on the bottom. And then you basically are going to press in. These are actually the rear shocks, but you press in this style like spherical lower mount. So that's how the bottom works. And then the top, just through bolts. Everything is super nice. Really happy with this stuff so far. I got anti-seize on the threads down there, double adjustable rebound and compression. My RideTechs were only adjustable, I think, rebound. So we already got an upgrade there. Everything's going together smooth. Looks like it's going to be compatible with my RideTech True Turn. You can see a shot of the bushing that I had to install down there. Again, everything's loose just for now. And then the spring just goes up in the factory spring perch. Shock goes through there, and then you tighten it down. We're good to go. So I'm going to keep plugging along here. Hopefully, like I said, the passenger side goes a little bit faster because now I actually know what I'm doing. Hopefully I can blast this apart, get the rest of this front end stuff on there, and hopefully call this front end project done. All right, back to work. Well, it's the next day, and I probably said something along the lines yesterday of, oh, it's the other side, learning curve, it'll go easier. Guys, I don't know, you know, this is my first time bolting on, you know, the car had all the RideTech stuff on it when I got it. This is my first time bolting lower control arms to a first-gen Camaro subframe. What the hell kind of drugs were those guys on in the 60s? This is so much harder than I thought it would be. I need to go to church right now and repent and say 500 Hail Marys because I have been cursing and throwing tools. There's a blood stain over there from where I was bleeding last night. And I'm still not done. This is terrible. Some friggin' genius, it was probably tripping on acid, decided that when you bolt the control arm through here, you gotta get your fingers, you guys won't even be able to see it, onto that bolt over there. No problem, right? It's like 6 inches deep, so you can't get your fingers on it. I had the smart idea to use electrical tape to get the bolt started, you know, which worked fine to get the bolt started, but now I can't get my socket on there, and I have been at this for 30 minutes just trying to get the lower A-arm bolted on. None of this is QA1's fault. This would have been the same with stock A-arms. It would have been the same with the RideTech stuff. It is just whatever engineer in the 60s was like, yep, that is a good idea. Write it down. Send it to production. Let's go. Everything else is bolted up though. I mean, everything else looks absolutely fantastic. Got the coilover on there. Like I said, just on the other side, everything's loose, but I got my ball joints in, cotter pins in. All I need to do is tighten those lower, the front one's no problem. You can get to both sides. You can see the nut over there and the bolt head right there. The back one is just a pain in the but we'll get it. I'm going to continue to struggle for probably another hour, and you know, on video it'll probably only seem like 15 seconds, and it was no issue. But I'm going to get that done. Let's get the brakes back on. I got the sway bar in there already. That's another thing I forgot to mention. The sway bar, beautiful QA1 sway bar. I have beat the crap out of this thing because there is just no room. Everywhere your hand wants to be, sway bar is in the way. And you know what you're thinking? Hey, Chris, just take the sway bar out and it'll get easier. No, the sway bar has to be in before the control arms. If you get the control arms in and then try to put the sway bar in, it won't fit. I've been there. I've done it. All right. Yeah, I'll get this done. Let's get this front wrapped up. And this was supposed to be the easy part, but we're on day 3 now. You know, just kind of picking away at it while I get frustrated. But all 4 A-arms are on. Let's hopefully wrap this up, get the brakes back on, and then maybe start adjusting ride height. Next day, again. Yesterday was a little bit of a struggle, as you probably saw, but I'm back. I'm calm. Got everything done yesterday. It's just, there's some awkward angles down there, and I don't think, you guys just saw me, I put the quick jacks all the way up. I probably should have had them up the whole time. It's a little cramped under there for a guy of my stature, and I don't know. There's those A-arms, man. Factory Camaro A-arms are a little bit of a struggle, but we got it done. The QA1 stuff looks incredible. I wanted to get it a little farther up in the air so I can show you guys. Grab a light. So yeah, I got my C6 Z06 brakes back on. You guys saw before I taped these off, I of course managed to put a little scratch. So that bums me out a little bit, but I've got plenty of this Riptide, or not Riptide blue, that's a Corvette. Whatever Blue Bayou GM paint color code this is, I can touch that up, but got everything in, looks awesome. Sway bars in there, coilovers are in there. Let's get on the creeper here, I can show you on the bottom. Yeah, everything looks really good. Clearance to my AC idler is almost non-existent, but that was exactly the same with the RideTech sway bar, and that's because I have the low mount AC on this LS. So I might have to space this sway bar down just a little bit more, but other than that, everything looks Really, really good. Got everything torqued, at least for now. I'll do a final torque when it's on the ground. But yeah, this QA1 stuff looks awesome. Super happy with it. If I'd had the car at the right height, you know, maybe on the 2-post lift and worked straight at it instead of like an hour here, an hour there, it really wouldn't have taken that long. Everything bolted in perfectly. The QA1 stuff fit perfectly. The hardware was awesome. The instructions were good. Everything's really good. So as of this point right now, other than finishing greasing some of the joints, I believe everything came with grease on it, but the instructions did say to just add to them. I already did both A-arms. I'll do the ball joints and stuff. I think we're done up front. I have the coilovers in the lowest position possible right now, just as a starting point. So I think when I put the wheels back on this thing and get on the ground, it's probably going to be too low in the front. But either way, it's a starting point. We can adjust from there using the included spanner wrenches. Here's all the ride tech stuff. Still in excellent shape. Yeah, like I said at the start of this video, guys, there's nothing wrong with this stuff, but when an awesome company like QA1 reaches out, more than excited and more than happy to try their stuff. But yeah, let me get the wheels on. Let's get this thing on the ground. Hey, Donnie, can we get a little lowrider? Donnie, lowrider.
Lowrider, Donnie. Donnie, lowrider.
Well, that might be a little bit too low, but that's to be expected. That is the lowest possible point that you can set the coilovers, which I'm happy to see that we have the option to go that low if we wanted to. Unfortunately, I don't think that would allow me to steer. I don't know. Let's take a look. Of course, this is with the suspension, just me bouncing on it. It'll likely settle even more once you drive. We are about 22 3/4. So what did I say before? Yeah, so we're down like, what is that, 1.5 inches? So we can always easily raise that up, but everything seems good. Looks mean that low. Yeah, we'll play with it a little bit, we'll see, but that's the front suspension. I think that is completely done. The only thing left to do really is just give everything a final torque on the ground if I can reach it, and drive the car. Torque the wheels, of course. But unfortunately, right now, I kind of need to switch gears over to my 2003 SVT Cobra, if you guys are watching that series at all. So the rear suspension, the 4-link, which I'm standing right by, right here, is gonna have to be on hold. That's the bad news. Good news is this is YouTube, so for you guys it'll be like 5 seconds from now, but I'm gonna get to work on the Mustang for a couple days, maybe. It's kind of a big job. Then we'll get right back in the Camaro and get to work on the rear. So, see you guys in a bit. Well, it has been, I think, over a week at this point since I've touched the Camaro. I have been consumed with this stupid Mustang Cobra. But yeah, the Cobra, as you can see, is barely more than a short block basically at this point. Just barely. It's a half of a long block. You guys who are following that series probably know all about this already. We'll see depending on the timing, but if you haven't, if I don't get this video out beforehand, there's a sneak peek. Heads off that one. Anyways, on the Camaro, And then the last time I updated you guys, we got the front suspension completely on. Upper A-arms, lower A-arms, coilovers, sway bar, and all associated parts. Looking awesome. Still need to adjust the ride height, but just got it back up in the air because it's time to tackle the rear QA1 4-link setup. I've got my instructions here in color, printed, ready to roll. Can probably pull it up on my laptop as well over there. There's a bunch of measurements, or there's actually really only 2 measurements. They want you to check or measure ride height and wheelbase. Also already took some driveline angles with my angle finder here, just because I know the car runs and rides smooth, so I'm gonna try and go similar with my driveline angles. But either way, I took way more measurements than I probably need. The rear end that's in there with the 4-link is not centered as is, so I can only do better. But like I said, the car drove awesome, so I think we're gonna be good regardless. But basically the first thing we need to do is remove the RideTech 4-link. So for those of you that are new to the channel or don't remember or just haven't seen a video on this car yet, here's the setup. There's my custom 3-inch stainless exhaust, the 8.5-inch 10-bolt, which unfortunately is an open diff. So we'll do something about that here shortly as well. And then there's the RideTech 4-link. The cradle's up there, lower non-adjustable control arms, upper adjustable control arms. It's a little bit dark up there. Again, as I mentioned at the start of this video, very similar stuff going in, just the QA1 variant, the highest quality. But yeah, we got to get that 4-link down, get the rear end out so we can get it maybe right here, maybe somewhere open that we can work on it. And then we got to start installing the QA1 stuff. So I'm going to get to work. At the next available breakpoint, I'll update you. Great, here we go. If it works, is it really a dumb idea? My wife just came out and said, "Why is this thing apart again? I thought it was done." She just doesn't get it. They're never done. You know, why not take apart a perfectly good running and driving car? It is the next day here, guys. I got the entire RideTech 4-link out of the car last night, so let me bring you up to speed. Basically, I did this a year ago to more firmly install the RideTech 4-link. Was kind of improperly installed when I bought the car. So I kind of knew what I was doing. I basically just started unbolting upper control arms, lower control arms, shocks. And for some reason this year, it was a lot sketchier when I was dropping out the rear end. I texted my wife and said, hey, can you come out and help me? And she said, yeah, I'll be there in a minute. And I got impatient, and instead of waiting for her to get there, the sketchiness that you saw ensued, where I placed the jack in the center of the pumpkin there and then was kind of balancing it and kicked the wheels out with my foot while at the same time lowering the jack, and somehow managed to not get crushed or damage any of the bodywork in the Camaro. So that's a win. But yeah, I think when going back in, I'll probably get the car lower so it's a little bit less sketchy, or just repeat what I did when I did this a year ago. But the rear end is out. The entire RideTech 4-link is out. All the suspension stuff is over there, ready to go on someone else's first-gen F-body, 67 through 69 Camaro or Firebird. Now, moving on to this beautiful QA1 stuff, I got basically all the rear suspension laid out over here. Basically, this is what's left. All the front's already on the car. But you've got your rear cradle or subframe there, sway bar, which I never had a rear sway bar before, so that'll be cool. Lower control arms, these ones are adjustable. Got this joint here in the middle that will allow us to make adjustments while it's on the car without undoing the Heim joint here. That's awesome. The RideTech one, the lowers were not adjustable. Double adjustable upper arms. Got your double adjustable coilovers. That's another thing. The RideTechs are only single adjustable, so we got double adjustable coilovers on all four corners. Big upgrade there. All your associated hardware and brackets and some stuff for the coilovers. And then these brackets are the upper control arm brackets, which are going to mount on the 10 bolt here. You can see the RideTech ones are still on there. I'm going to have to cut these off and smooth everything out and then weld these on, but we're a little bit ways away from that because we have to mount these and mock them up with the rear axle at ride height to get our pinion angle and stuff right. But yeah, that's all the stuff right there. Let me just show you under the car real quick without the cradle. Been using my BendPak light stick a lot. Works perfectly in situations like this to give us good light. So yeah, here's the trunk floor. You guys are new to the channel. Extremely clean car. The whole car has been, underside has been Raptor coated. I think this is Raptor coating. It's like a really hard truck bed coating. I really like it. There are some spots like the wheel well here that are peeling. I guess they didn't do the prep work right. They probably didn't scuff it well enough in some areas, but that's okay because I need to redo it anyways. Because you can see the RideTech 4-link was basically riv nutted to the rear subframe. The QA1 subframe is going to weld here and here on both sides. So basically what I'm going to need to do is mock it up, hold it in with some clamps, mark where it's going to be, then remove all of this Raptor liner, then probably spray it with some weld-in primer, or weld-through primer rather, and then weld the whole thing in. So honestly, any exposed, some of the stuff is chipping in some areas, so we'll re-primer that, get it all welded in. These are like zinc coated riv nuts anyways. I'm not worried about those rusting, but basically I think that any exposed areas that are left once the subframe's in, I'm gonna primer and then probably re-Raptor coat. So everything will be nice and sealed up, should look nice and professional, and we can touch up some of these areas while we're at it. If any of you guys have used the Raptor liner stuff, open to comments and suggestions and tips on using that stuff. I think it comes in with its own sprayer, and you hook it up to your compressor and who knows what. But yeah, gotta watch out for my fuel lines here. These were tucked up behind the cradle. I'm hoping to do the same kind of thing there. But yeah. But before we do that, I'm just basically following the instructions here. I got the spring pockets out. I labeled them passenger and driver. Again, following the QA1 instructions. Looks like we have to put on the axle mounts using the U-bolts, which are going to go right there on the leaf spring mounts. And then we can start putting on some of the hardware for the coilovers, and then that's basically when we get into mocking up and welding in the subframe. So yeah, let's keep the progress rolling, get to work assembling this axle, and hopefully get this subframe in and welded in. Well, it happened again. It has been 2 weeks since I've filmed anything or worked on or done anything to my 1969 Camaro. We are elbows deep in a full QA1 suspension install, but you guys already know that because we're well into the video. So let me bring you up to speed. So 2 weeks ago, I was under here welding. We got the cradle fully welded in. And let me just lay down here. It was not easy, but it came out really good. Focus camera. So basically you're welding in 2 positions on each side, kind of the back and then the front here. Forgive me if I'm repeating myself, they wanted you to plug weld all those holes and then basically weld around the perimeter of this thing on the back there. Let me reposition myself here. I'm not complaining because I absolutely love these quick jacks. But the reason I didn't do this on my lift is because the Cobra has been over there for 2 weeks with the motor out of it. So I'm thankful for these quick jacks, but if I could have had the choice, I would have rather do this on my lift, but I digress. Welds came out really good. I'm not a welder, but for just running the MIG, I think they came out pretty decent. For example, stacked some dimes right there. Some look better than others, but they are all very solid. You can see that, one right there, pretty good. Actually, let me back up for a second. Obviously, I cleaned all the Raptor liner off the areas that we wanted to put them in, scrubbed down to bare metal, and then put on some etching weld-through primer so that we don't get any sort of corrosion issues on this thing. I will note, QA1 only wanted you to plug weld these holes. I added these ones on the bottom just for, good measure. Why not? These are pretty easy to get to. Where it got a little tricky was, for example, right here. The only good way to get to this is what I'm doing right now. Laying on the floor, reaching up with my arms fully extended, which you could probably see in the B-roll. So not the prettiest welds, but they are solid. They were at the right temperature. They are not going anywhere. I'm pretty happy with them. Over here, I had to get creative with using like aluminum heat shielding to not set my fuel lines on fire. You can actually see where they got a little bit hot right there. So yeah, but these things are in there solid. And man, I hope this thing's in the right spot because it is not coming out. I will say that the QA1 stuff is superior in that they want you to weld it in. The Ride Tech stuff, you'd probably be fine with rib nuts, but everyone I've talked to online, everyone I've gotten feedback from who even runs the Ride Tech stuff usually says, hey, you should probably weld that cradle in anyway. So that cradle is gonna be 10 times stronger and more solid than the Ride Tech one ever was, even though I redid it last year. Again, nothing against Ride Tech. That setup was awesome, but this thing's solid. Fitment was good. Like I said, I basically chalked it up with some clamps, made sure everything looked good. Did a little bit of back and forth with the customer service with the guys at QA1. They've been fantastic. Said, does this look good? They were like, mm-hmm. And then I fired up the welder. You do have to be careful because the sheet metal, especially on a 50-year-old frame, is extremely thin. I just grabbed a piece of steel here. This is probably, I don't know, 1/8 inch maybe, which is probably thicker than what's in the frame, honestly. And then I grabbed the thickness of steel that I thought was approximate to the cradle, and that's kind of how I got my settings there. And I did blow through the frame on like one of those plug welds just because it was probably a very thin spot, but you let it cool and then kind of fill it in and you'll be good to go. So welding is all done. From there, we need to coat that bare metal. So I'm gonna wipe it down again, probably hit it with some etching primer, and then for now, just some flat black paint. As I already mentioned earlier in the video, I'm going to be Raptor lining those areas that need to be redone anyways in a couple weeks. So I just wanna coat the metal for now, and then we'll Raptor line the whole thing. So the next step is basically situating the rear axle. So we need to grab our lower control arms over here. I want you to set them to this exact length, which I already did. And then we're gonna put them back in the front spring pockets, then put the upper control arms on, and then basically mock up the rear axle and start getting ready to weld the axle brackets to the axle, which is obviously gonna take a lot of fitment and double checking measurements to make sure the axle is centered in the wheel well, centered, in the center of the car, and just making sure that everything is exactly where it needs to be. Oh yeah, it's been so long. I also forgot Got the old brackets cut off. Got the axle tubes cleaned up. These things are nice and clean, nice and smooth, and basically ready for the new axle brackets to be welded on. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Sorry for kind of a long-winded update, but like I said, it's been 2 weeks and kind of got a lot done. But yeah, let's get right back into it. Hopefully get right back into the rhythm of things. Let's start getting this rear suspension where it needs to be, get the axle where it needs to be, and just see how far we get. Let's get to work. Yeah, so I don't know, follow me for more jack safety tips. You want to stack them on top of each other at weird angles and then just use whatever you can find around the garage when the reach isn't enough. So yeah, follow me for more safety tips. All right guys, it is the next day, or 2 days later actually. You joined me on the garage floor looking up at the work that we've accomplished. Better come back here. So as you can see, the rear end is finally back up in the car. Got the lower control arms bolted in their spots. Got the upper control arms on there with the weld-on brackets just kind of placed above the rear axle, ready for tacking and positioning, and also got the shocks on without the coilovers, just for mock-up purposes so that we can see where our ride height is and make all of our adjustments. And those adjustments are centering the rear end side to side, centering the rear end front to back, which is adjustable, so that's going to be good. And you know, if we need a little wiggle room. So most importantly, side to side, and then also getting our pinion angle right. which is why I have this jack stacked on top of the other one. I took some measurements before I even took this thing apart. I don't think my pinion angle was correct, you know, in the old setup. So we're gonna try and correct it. It didn't vibrate at all, but we're gonna go for 1 degree, as per the instructions, 1 degree of pinion down, which to me is counterintuitive, but apparently that's the terminology. 1 degree of pinion down is actually the pinion, if we're pointing towards the front of the car, is up, like pointing up this way. But apparently pinion angle is basically one direction. So if you think about the transmission pointing down 1 degree, if it's parallel with the pinion is also down 1 degree, even though it's pointing up that way, if that makes any sense. But driveline guys probably know a lot better than me. But basically we want the front of the pinion up 1 degree so that when the driveline squats, it becomes level with the drive shaft there. Basically, you always want your pinion angle to basically match your transmission output shaft angle. So that's another important thing that we're measuring for. I'm gonna use my digital angle finder for that. So I took some measurements before we took it apart. Basically, this body line to the tire on both sides, it wasn't exactly square, but we're gonna get it close. But again, the advantage of the QA1 setup that I have here over RideTech is these are adjustable, so we can kind of fine tune this even after we weld stuff in. What I do want to make sure we get as close to right as possible is the centering of the axle, which on the old setup, whoever installed it before, they didn't do a terrible job, but it was not perfectly centered. So I got these plumb bobs hanging here right over the center of the axle so I can measure and make sure that we are perfectly centered side to side in the car. Just as a quick example, guys, you can always check the angle of your engine and transmission or your transmission output shaft because they are bolted together on the front balancer of your vehicle. That's kind of what I'm doing on this LS because it's difficult on some LS transmissions. Hopefully you guys can see I've zeroed it out. Of course, the backlight just went off. So we'll go then check on the pinion. And ideally, this will be the same or maybe 1 degree up. And there we go, perfect. So we're 2/10 of a degree, quote unquote, down, which means we are 2/10 of a degree pointed up when compared to the transmission output shaft. So that's about perfect. We can always further adjust that. That's the point, excuse me, of these upper adjustable arms, is kind of twisting the axle and adjusting our pinion angle. So that's perfect. I'm gonna leave that right there. So yeah, that's basically where I'm at. I just got to double, triple, quadruple check everything. Make sure that we're exactly where we want to be. Then we're going to tack it in with the welder, double, triple check everything again, and then we can take the rear end out, finish weld it, prep it, paint it, and then put it back in the car. So I'm just going to keep going with my measurements, make sure everything's exactly where I want it. Then we'll fire up the old Harbor Freight MIG welder, blast those upper control arm brackets in, and call this beautiful QA1 setup done, and maybe get this thing on the ground for the first time in like, God, I don't even know how long it's been up here. 5 weeks maybe? I'll have to look at my pictures, but way too long. So let's get back to work. Ready to weld. Magic ingredient, welding juice. See that mark at 2.5 inches?
Nice.
Don't worry about that one. All right, guys, well, it is a couple days later. I think on Friday, it's now Tuesday, long Memorial Day weekend. Friday, I got the rear end all measured up and tacked in and looking pretty good. I kind of went back and forth with if I was happy with the driveline angles. I got the rear end centered perfectly, as we discussed. I got my pinion angle perfectly zeroed out with the transmission output shaft angle. And that gave me a drive shaft or a U-joint working angle of like almost 5 degrees. I think most guys will say you want less than 3 degrees U-joint working angle. So I went back and forth a little bit, ended up shimming the transmission up a little further. And then also I ended up cutting off the tacks that I did, bringing the pinion down a little bit to match again to the new level of the transmission. And after doing all that, then spending another hour, or more recentering the rear end, just double, triple checking everything. Got it tacked in. Then yesterday, burned it in. And then today, got it fully primed, cleaned, painted, all that stuff. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm not exaggerating when I say I probably have 2 to 3 hours just in checking measurements. Just basically doing circles right here. Half circles, I guess, from one side to the other. Because let's say you get the rear end perfectly centered, then you want to check the ride height, make sure the ride height's the same on both sides. You adjust the ride height over there. Now it messes up the centering or pinion angle or whatever. So you change one thing, so you're just kind of chasing yourself around until you eventually lock it in, get everything perfect, which is what I did. And I think the rear end is 100% perfectly centered. My pinion angle should be perfectly matched to my transmission output shaft angle, and everything should be good. Like I said, the rear end that I took out was not centered. Whoever installed the ride, it was close, but if you guys remember when I was really struggling to fit these 285s in a stock 1969 Camaro non-mini tub car, there's not a lot of guys out there that have done this. It was really tight on, can't remember which side it was, but it wasn't even, but now it's perfectly centered, so fitment should be perfect. But with any luck, I didn't have any driveline vibrations before. I won't have any now. If anything, I think I've improved my pinion angle and U-joint working angles, but we'll see. But yeah, rear end is ready to go. Got it rolled under the car, looking fresh. I just gave the whole thing a quick coat of flat black paint right over the primed areas. She's ready to go in. I just got it bolted in, get these coilovers assembled. We'll definitely have to do some adjustments later. But as of right now, I just want to get this rear end in, get this car on the ground for the first time in a long time. So let's get back to work, get this rear end in, get the coilovers assembled, get this thing back on the ground where it belongs. Well, as Lil Wayne once said on a Jay Sean track back in 2009, this thing is down like the economy. Shoo! She is slammed. It is the next day and I completely finished up the QA1 4-link install. Got her fully bolted back in, which I'm gonna have to get on the ground to show you because this thing is so low now, but check it out. Looking snazzy. You guys already saw it in the B-roll footage. Everything's tightened up, torqued. I started with about an inch of adjustment on the coilovers. QA1 recommends 2 inches, which is probably gonna be where we're gonna wanna go. This is a little bit too low to drive for my I mean, it looks nasty. This thing's almost as low as a C8 Corvette. But as I mentioned in the front part, I think the front's gonna have to come up a little. We're definitely gonna want the rear to come up a little, but believe it or not, you guys probably won't be able to tell. This thing has like a millimeter of clearance to the fender. The other side has even a little bit more. Crazy to think that on a stock, non-tubbed 69 Camaro, we have a 285 tire tucked like that. There is not, I don't know if anyone else has done that before. When I was researching if I could even put a 285 on there, a lot of guys said you couldn't do it 275 max, so here we are. So I still need to hook up the brake lines, bleed the brakes, adjust the coilovers, double check all my torque specs with everything on the ground, and we still have to put in the QA1 rear sway bar, which I never had a sway bar in this car, so I'm looking forward to that. But I'm already mostly done editing this video, and it's already really, really long, over an hour, so great for you guys, but I think I'm gonna wrap this one up here. Huge shout out to QA1, those guys were patient with me. I just looked up, I took this car apart almost 6 weeks ago, and I've just been kind of putting in time while I can between this and the C8 and the 2003 Cobra project. So really appreciate those guys being patient, appreciate you guys being patient with me and getting out, content on the 69 Camaro. But guys, if you have a first gen Camaro or any sort of resto mod or even newer stuff, QA1 is your suspension company. They've got everything from cars from the 50s all the way up through the 2000s, 2010s, I think even some 2020s stuff. They've got your suspension needs covered. Their customer service is second to none. Can't say enough about how happy I've been with this company. I haven't even driven this stuff yet. But I mean, you guys know, this thing is gonna handle like it's on rails. I mean, just look at it. High quality stuff, built right here in the USA. Especially if you guys have a first gen F-body 1967 and 1969 Camaro or Firebird, be sure to check out QA1's brand new 4-link setup. You've seen the quality firsthand right here. Install was really not too bad. Just did it right on my back, just like you guys can. Right here on jacks or quick jacks if you have them, but jack stands work too. Same idea. Was able to get it done and could not be happier with it. So yeah, we'll get the sway bar in the next one, make some coilover adjustments, finish up any odds and ends, and most importantly, get this thing out on the road and see how it drives. But thank you guys for watching. This was a long one. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Every subscription helps. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. We'll catch you in the next one. I'm gonna start filming it right now.